What is your Tinder horror story? It ended up being a double date with his mom and her a Cupid date. He told me that he and his mom were a package deal. I was mortified, and there was no second date. Sexted with this really hot girl after matching for about a day, and she starts getting all kinky with me. She then tells me she's actually a guy trolling me. I said jokes on you Kazimbi. He unmatched. Not me. But I worked as a bartender for a while and heard a lot of horror stories secondhand. This one girl who was a regular came in and told me about an awful Tinder date she had. Not sure of the specifics, but it wasn't bad enough for her to not bring him home afterward. He leaves the next morning. She brushes it off as a one night stand. And a few days later, her debit card gets declined. Odd. Since she is a bartender herself at a fairly busy place in our city and is good about saving and usually flush with cash, she goes to check her debit card. Turns out there were a bunch of charges at Best Buy, Grubhub, a bunch of other stuff. Curious. She checks her credit card too. There she found a bunch of charges for streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, Sling, everything. She goes to confront the guy and finds out he deleted his profile. But she remembers a friend they had in common on Facebook. She reaches out to the mutual friend to try and track him down, and it turns out he did the exact same thing to that mutual friend. Not sure if what the outcome was, but she was out for blood after a mediocre hookup turned into a serious case of identity theft. He told me he's not gay, but he prefers to have sex with men and prefers to be on the bottom. I asked if he was bi, and he said no, I'm straight, I just like getting ducked in the ass. And then he asked me if he could pee in my butt cause he's always wanted to try it, but he won't top guys, so he can't find out how it feels. He's the head football coach of a private college in my state, and that made it even weirder somehow. Edit. Just wanna add that I'm a woman and not a gay man at all. Mayo. I went on a Tinder date a couple months ago on a Sunday afternoon. Met up with the guy around 3. He had a really good energy and was funny and complimentary. The place we wanted to go had a long line, so we went to another restaurant on the water for a drink and appetizers. He started slamming down mates. I had 1. He had 3. They were strong. Like, I was tipsy, borderline drunk off of 1. The bar had a 2 mate per person limit, but he found another bartender to get his 3rd. He got drunker and drunker and started telling me he loved me. Joking at first but getting increasingly serious. As we left he asked me to marry him. I kind of laughed it off and was like, maybe we take it slow. We just met each other. He got so mad he stormed off and left me on a street corner. Then as soon as he got home, it was 5 PM, he started texting me, come over and I miss you. He was 43. WTF. I went on a date with this guy, who I didn't really have anything in common with, but thought I'd give him a shot anyways. We met up at a bar, and he had already pounded 2 pitchers of beer, but was completely sober, at least from what I could tell. We hung out, talked, and although he seemed nice enough, I wasn't quite feeling it. I wanted to leave, but he convinced me to go to another bar to get one last drink. Seeing as it was only about 8 PM, I agreed to one more drink. We were sitting at the bar and a couple was making out next to us. He looked at me and asked what I thought people in the bar would do if he and I started making out. I knew where this was going. I tried to laugh and make some joke about no one paying attention. He then insisted that we should make out. I nervously laughed and told him that wasn't a very good idea and excused myself to the restroom. I came back to the seat and he had a shot waiting for me and insisted I drink it. No shot for him, just me. I declined and he got really upset and said he was ready to go. At that point in the evening he had consumed 2 pitchers of beer, 4 margaritas, and 2 more pints, yet displayed no sign of being intoxicated. Nonetheless, I knew there was a lot of alcohol in his system and asked if he thought it was a good idea for him to drive. He got extremely defensive and said he was fine. We exited the bar and he took off in the opposite direction. When I got home I texted him just to make sure he was okay because had had so much to drink. His response? I only date girls I duck on the first date. Dodged a bullet with that one. Found a profile using a picture of me that was obviously ripped from my Facebook account. Come to find out it was my ex-wife trying to stir up drama and problems between my current wife and myself. A single friend of ours texted me a screenshot of it. My wife is an intelligent woman and didn't fall for it. This became a horror story for my ex, because this, among other shady things she had done, landed her with stalking charges and identity theft charges. Sucks to be stupid. I messaged a girl who wanted to meet up. So I go out to the coffee shop and she's not there. I ask her what's up and she totally admits to being a dude catfishing me just so he could check me out in public. And goes on a rant about what a shame it is that I'm a lesbian because he totally ducked me. I feel like the creepiest part for me was that he never once tried to get nudes or anything, which I'd at least understand the effort for. He just wanted to stare at me in public. Not me. My dad. Not Tinder either. It was Match.com. My dad had been on Match for about 3 months with some success. He's a tall Australian man who's decent looking, so he had some interest. One weekend he got sent his first nude, which he thought was strange, but brushed it off. Later that week he got 6 more nudes from the same woman. Before he blocked her, he decided that he would open them just for kicks. 5 of the pictures are just straight up vag shots, which he said were incredibly unappealing and had terrible lighting. The 6th picture, however, was something different. The woman was standing in her bra in front of mirror, puss out, winking, with a bunch of herbs shoved in her bra. Basil, parsley, thyme, all that good stuff. The caption on the picture was spice rack. She was swiftly blocked after my dad stopped laughing long enough to find the block button. I've been waiting for the right thread for this. After a movie date with a guy I met on Tinder, we came back to my place. We'll call him Jude. I told him we could hang for a bit, but I have work in the morning, so I would need to go to sleep soon. Jude said that was fine, but he was hungry and he was going to order food. Okay, sure. Jude orders 2 large subs from Potbelly and a milkshake. Downs it. No judgment. He's 6'4", 210 pounds. Younger, still growing. By all means. I didn't think anything of it until later. We end up messing around a bit and fall asleep in bed. I wake up to my front door opening and closing several times over a 5-minute period. My dogs are going nuts. And it's 1 AM. What the heck is this guy doing? I opened the door to my room that opens up to the rest of my apartment, and my bathroom is to the left, where the light is on and the door is wide open. I walk around the corner to make eye contact with Jude, who is in a squatting position over my toilet, with a stick, poking around in murky brown poop water that is millimeters from overflowing onto my bathroom floor. Horrified, he yells, "Stop looking at me. Go back to bed. I have it under control." I'm still waking up trying to understand what I'm seeing and what's going on, and I just start nervous laughing. I don't know what else to do. He yells, "Why don't you have a plunger?" And I said I don't know, I never needed one until now. He tells me to go back to bed, he has it under control. I'm so disturbed, tired, can't process what's happening, and have work in the morning. I go back to bed. I remember hearing him peek in my room a bit later and heard. I fixed it, and then heard him leave, and my door close behind him. The next morning, I hesitantly approach my toilet to find the water is down. But there is something poking out from the bottom of the toilet, like he didn't get it all. Upon further inspection, what I was seeing was the tip of a stick, some gloves, towels and BBQ tongues. Later I pulled out approximately 3 foot of stick from my toilet that had broke off, followed by several other stick fragments. Dude had broke several sticks. I heard my door open and close so much because he was going outside to look for a stick. One would break, he'd go get another. Dude had left drippy poop water stains all over my bathroom floor. He also left my apartment so fast that he left his underwear and undershirt and socks. After work that day, I went straight to the store and bought a plunger. Lesson learned. TLDR, guy from Tinder ate a bunch right before bed. Took a huge poop while I was asleep. Woke up to him trying to plunge the toilet with a stick he found outside. A chick said she was having a work party at her house and I should come over. It's Bob. So I bought a 6-pack for myself. Went to her place and noticed more than half of the people were younger, 17, 18. While I was 21 and the girl was also 21. Then they gathered everyone in the living room and proceed to talk about the job. Turns out it was one of those pyramid scheme recruiting gatherings. I just sat there drinking my beer, only one drinking for 2 hours, because I thought it was rude to leave, because they were telling sob stories and saying how much this job had helped them. Sat there listening to some head of the group guy saying how we can make millions in a short amount of time. Saying bullcrap like, you see my BMW 3 Series out front? That's a company car that you can drive around in if you do what we do. It was sad because they were trapping low-income teens that are deciding not to go to college and to join them. After the pitch, I pretty much had enough and was preparing to leave. Then the girl came up to me and asked what I thought, and I just said it's not for me and I'm leaving. She asked if I wanted to take my beer, and I said they needed it more than I did. 2 or 3 weeks later she sent me a text. Unfortunately we exchanged numbers asking if the head of the group guy can call me and ask me questions on why I'm not signing up and how I thought the group session went. I didn't reply, but sure enough the dude called me and I politely said it's not for me, but he kept pushing. Finally I had to tell him to duck off, and that was the end of that. Never went to work parties for a Tinder date again. It was a complete crap show, and if it wasn't for the beer I brought, or the Tinder date's dog, I would have just left. Looking back on it, during the pitch, the head of the group guy said at one point, if you're not interested in making $1 million, you can just leave. No one's stopping you. I really wish I stood up, chugged my beer, and said duck this crap. You guys are all stupid and no one should be joining. You will ruin your lives, and walk out. But that's just a daydream I have in the shower. Edit words and stuff, and thank you kind strangers for my first awards. Started talking to this guy, exchanged numbers. Everything was completely normal and we hit it off. He had a good job, we had similar interests, and he was really good looking. He asks me out for drinks. We go, talk for a couple hours, have fun. We continue texting, and he asks me to hang out at his place the next time. I go. His place is normal looking. No red flags. We start talking. He's drinking, and he gets super paranoid out of nowhere. He tells me he did a background check on me and then asks me if I'm acquainted with a specific person he must know somehow or have trouble with. I say no, and he continues asking me questions about this so-called person with which he never says a name. He then tells me he has killed someone before, and then asks me if I'm wearing a wire on me. At this point I was trying not to freak out, which I did a pretty good job of. I continued to play it cool as we talked. He kept telling me how much he liked me, and that he liked me so much that I should just leave. He said this to me about 15 times. I like you so much you should just go, something along those lines. Eventually I took it as my way out and left before he could think twice about what I was doing. I got to my car, which wasn't a far walk from his front door, and I remember saying Jesus Christ to myself before driving away quickly. About 5 minutes later he called me and couldn't believe I left. He kept asking me if I trusted him multiple times, and I finally got him off the phone by saying I had to work early and go to bed. I only answered because I was trying to break it off easy, so he didn't do anything to me. He called me again at 5 that morning, which I didn't answer. Never heard from him again after that. Thank God. Thanks Tinder. Chatted with this girl for about 2 weeks. Every conversation went well, and eventually I got her number and she started sharing nudes and speaking dirty. Late on evening after a stressful work day she talks me into driving an hour to come get coffee with her. She spends the next hour and a half non-stop talking about her ex and how she has to see him at the bank and all this personal upset ex-girlfriend stuff. She cuts me off anytime I try to speak or change the subject right back to him. A day later I get a text about how I didn't do any talking and I was too boring to be anything more than just friends with. She got irate when I pointed out she would not allow me to speak and only wanted to talk about her ex-boyfriend when we have never once had a slow or boring conversation before meeting up. So I met this girl on Tinder and went for a lunch date. We had a pretty good connection, so we decided to have dinner as well. After having a few drinks, one thing led to another and ended up back at my place. We hooked up and went to sleep. Middle of the night I wake up. She's intensely staring at me while she's crouched behind the bed. I asked her if everything is alright. She said yes and got back into bed. I thought little creepy, but probably nothing to worry about. She lays down to cuddle with me and she's wet. At the time, I was like, damn, I must just be a stallion. Fast forward to the morning. She's gone and there's a wet puddle beside the bed. She peed on my floor. I still don't understand it. I had a bathroom, but maybe she just got lost and couldn't hold it. I did not hear from her again. Edit. Just want to be clear. We were both tipsy and not sloppy drunk. First date. She wanted me to get into a bar fight with a perfectly friendly guy who'd bought us a round of shots that night. Why? Because she found out he was a Scorpio. I matched with a girl and sent a lot of messages. Later that night we talked on the phone and the conversation was going really well, so I asked to go out the next night. She agreed, and then 5 minutes later she tells me that she needs to tell me something. She tells me that she's permanently in a wheelchair, so I'm either an a-hole if I back out now, or an a-hole if I lead her on. I figure why not? It's just a date, and it could be a fun time still. We talk more that night and go to bed. The next morning she calls me early and tells me she's doing something crazy. She won't tell me what, but she said she'll show me later. A few hours goes by and she calls me back and tells me she's going to send me a pic of what she did. I check my messages and I see a picture of her wrist with my name now tattooed on it. We end the call and I immediately tell my friends about this crazy girl. Later that night I'm driving to her place cause I figure she can be committed enough to tattoo my name on her. I should be committed enough to go on this date. Plus I have to know it's real. I'm almost at her place and I realize that my car may not accommodate her wheelchair, and I know she drives, so I ask if she can drive us. I'm walking in the parking lot and she drives up and I get in the car. Now I had figured she had a handicapped enabled car. Nope. Turns out she just uses 2 crutches to drive. One on the gas and one on the brake. I don't like this as we are driving on the Southern California freeways and traffic. We go eat and she gets a phone call from her daughter. Turns out she left her 10 years old daughter at home alone and she's scared. I'm like, hey, we can go. But she's like, no, it's okay, I gave her something to make her sleep, she'll be asleep soon. So we finish up and I was gonna take her to see a movie, but the kid thing was too much. So we head home and my fingers are already crossed that we make it when she turns to me while driving and says, wow, I'm kinda drunk. In my head I'm like, 1 drink is all you had. But I ask if I can drive and she says no, she's gonna get in the fast lane and uses her crutch to hit the gas. I say my last prayers, but we made it back to her place. So I wheeled her back to her door, said goodbye and left. Tattoo was real though. Oh, I have one where I was probably the nightmare. I went on a first date with a girl from Tinder at a Cajun restaurant in Dallas. The restaurant was the Razzoos on 75. I had read recently about some stuff called kratom that is supposed to make you feel really relaxed and euphoric. And I had tried to make a tea from the recommended dosage the previous day, but I didn't feel anything off of it. So I figured if this stuff was supposed to make you be cool and euphoric, then the best time to take it would be for a first date. And since I didn't feel anything from it the first time, I figured I should take more. So I wrapped a lot of it. Kratom is usually sold as a greenish, super bitter powder up inside of balls of deli meat, and swallowed those whole before the date. I then went to the lunch feeling nothing until I met the girl and sat down, at which point I suddenly came to the realization that I was a few seconds away from projectile vomiting up all that kratom and deli meat in the middle of the restaurant. I excused myself, got up from the table, walked a few steps towards the bathroom until I began to violently vomit, at which point I covered my mouth with my hands, began choking on my own vomit as I sprinted towards the bathroom, leaked a trail of vomit all over the floor in a path towards the bathroom, then continued to violently projectile vomit into the trash can in the bathroom. I then spent a while to clean my face and wash my arms and hands which were soaked in vomit. I then returned to the table and tried to survive the rest of the lunch date without dying of embarrassment. I felt like a huge asshole and was really embarrassed. Edit. The road was 75 in Alice, not I-75. We lived about 25 minutes from each other, so agreed to meet at the beach pier about halfway between. Before meeting, we had been texting, and he seemed totally normal. I was already at the pier when he texted me saying he can't meet me there because his license is revoked and it's too far for him to walk. I should have just left then, but I agreed to meet him at a pizza place closer to him. I get there, and I'm standing outside when I see him and quickly realize the pics from his profile were at least 5 years old. Homeboy looks like the dollar store version of himself. Greasy. Looks like he hasn't showered in days. Hair undone. Holes in his shirt. I awkwardly give him a side hug and suggest we get a seat. And he says, "Oh, no, we are not getting pizza. Let's go to the park." I awkwardly say okay. And as he talks, I realize his gums and tongue ring are stained black from smoking. By this point, I'm completely turned off and I'm just keeping up with formalities. So we get to the park and find a bench to talk. And before I can sit down, homie pulls me onto his lap, squeezing me and saying, "God, Bobby Gerald, you are so ducking cute." I awkwardly scooch away and try to get a conversation going. He pulls out his phone and starts texting for a few minutes, not really listening to me, before interrupting with, "Have you smoked? My friend is a plug. We could go back to my place for a bowl." I decline. Or, "Come on, Bobby Gerald, my place is just right there. We could have some fun, too." I decline again. Next thing you know, he pulls me close by the face and whispers, "You're so innocent," before broad-tongued licking my face from chin to ear. Shell-shocked, I just sit there for a moment processing what the duck just happened as he keeps talking about weed, before I decide to fake an urgent phone call and leave. Edit. Word edit 2. No need to worry guys. I have self-esteem now and would never put up with anything like this ever again. This was 3 years ago when I was 19 and dumb as crap. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe and hit the bell for more edit content.